Welcome everyone to this meeting of the MOU committee. Notice of non-discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. Accessibility statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with the exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards, and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Erin McGuire, MPO staff at emcguire@ctps.org, or you could telephone at 857-702-3681 or via the chat box. Guidelines. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Introductions. Not sure who wants to do the introductions, Dave or Erin?
Lauren, are you on the ready by chance?
Lauren.
Awesome, thank you.
Our core committee.
Tom Bent, present.
MBTA Advisory Board.
Hannah Swilikowski, Deputy Director, present.
Metro West. Okay, I'll circle back to Metro West. Mass DOT seat 1.
Yep, Derek Cravat here from MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning.
Mass DOT seat 2.
John Romano, Mass DOT Highway. Yeah.
MAPC.
Good afternoon, Eric Barasta, MAPC.
Advisory Council.
Leonard Diggins, Advisory Council here. If it gets noisy, please feel free to mute me. All right, thank you.
City of Boston.
This is Jen Rowe representing the City of Boston.
And Town of Brookline.
Mike Sandlin, Town of Brookline.
Okay, that's the roll, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Item number 2 would be public comments. Anybody that has a public comment, you could bring it up now or raise your hand during our discussion. And once the committee members are completed with their questions, I can call on you. Okay, not seeing any public comments. Go to action item number 3, which would be the meeting, the vote to approve the meeting minutes of April 3rd.
I'll make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
All right, thanks, Eric. And Jen?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Lauren, can you call the roll?
Yes. Tom Ben.
Yes.
Hannah Swilikowski.
Abstain.
Derek Cravat.
Yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Len Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Michael Sandman.
Mike Sandman, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item number 4, which would be the MOU document review and discussion. Erin?
Thank you. If I could share my screen, Lauren. Thank you. today we will be walking through some small changes that have been made to the MOU since we last discussed it on July 10th. So the base version that you guys can all reference is the version that was posted for July 10th. I've also sent a message in the chat with that link. There's really only a handful of changes to walk through today, but the ultimate goal is to get us all comfortable with moving forward to vote for the end of this meeting to bring it to the full MPO board for discussion and deliberation. So I'm going to walk through just what those changes are. On page 5, there was a small change just updating the verbiage of the RTAs operate the public transportation in the Boston region versus RTAs are operating public transportation. And this is the vein of a lot of the edits that we're going to go through. And please feel free to interject throughout this presentation if you have any input. The next, yes.
Excuse me, could you maybe like enlarge it by like 25%? Oh,
Sure. Let
okay,
me
great.
increase my window
Okay,
if that helps.
great. Yeah, thank you.
Is that any better?
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the next change is just clarifying a bit of the language around the RTA seat and how the two RTAs, MWRTA and CADA, are referenced. This doesn't change the substance of this particular paragraph. So I'll just pause here for a couple of seconds to give you a chance. And then some other feedback that we had gotten last week was about the advisory council language and specifically about how the advisory council can act as an accountability arm. So Stella had made a couple of small changes to try and get at the nature of this. So the first one is a small addendum to the accountability section, and it reads that the advisory council focuses on bringing transparency and greater accountability to encourage the MPO's decision-making to be consistent with the vision and goals established in the LRTP and reflective of the priorities and needs of the public. And there was also another small addition at the final paragraph where it reads, the advancement of its own education, awareness, and issues facing the MPO, the above goals, and its advisory role. The advisory council holds a seat on the MPO board and all standing and ad hoc committees. We ultimately did this relatively minor approach just due to the back and forth nature of this language with the advisory council, and we didn't want to modify it too much from what they had last approved and really had a discussion surrounding. Again, I will pause here for discussion.
One, can you scroll
Go ahead, Lynn.
please? Sorry about that, Tom. I didn't ask, you know.
No, no
I'm
problem.
having problems raising my hand, you know, thank you. So just scroll up, please, a little bit to the, and then I'm gonna ask Jen, you, and so let's see. And reflective of needs and priorities. So we had this discussion pretty much at the behest of Ms. Rowe, you know, so I want to see how she feels about that last clause on the accountability, you know, because my inclination, you know, would be, you know, to drop it. But if she feels that it meets a need that she felt, you know, was missing, you know, I'll be happy to keep it. So that's through you, Tom. To Jen.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Jen?
Yeah, I think I do think this adds something around kind of the so I guess just to kind of back up, my understanding of the advisory council is that I believe there is kind of a federal like recommendation, whether or not it's like written into the code, but like that they do like to see advisory groups as part of MPOs, and that part of the role of advisory councils is to represent the voices of stakeholders who are not otherwise like on the board. And so I think the way the accountability statement had read before was that the advisory council was kind of almost like an internal watchdog or something, like where it was like what, and I get that other places it wasn't necessarily represented like that, but it was like kind of making sure the MPO was staying accountable to its own plans. And I think this adds a bit that's like, it's also kind of having an eye towards the MPO, like hearing from the needs and priorities of the broader public. So I think I like this, but Len, I know you're this is primarily, I defer to you on whether this is all right to add or not.
Len,
Oh, no, we're headed into a deferment. No. I see your point, Jen, and I appreciate it, and so yeah, I mean, I'm fine with leaving it, I think you got at why I was somewhat inclined to drop it was because there is and when we refer to other parts of the document and we think about just the overall, composition, of the advisory council, is a bit redundant, but but repetition emphasizes things, and so to the extent we had a back and forth discussion about this in the last meeting, and you're happy with this, I'm happy with it. So that's it. Thank you.
thank you, Len and Jen.
Okay,
right.
fantastic. So then the next revision is on page 9. It adds just a clause in the introductory sentence of the overview and modifies it to read that the Boston Region MPO shall be a forum for the cooperative decision-making about transportation planning, programming, and policy in the Boston region by the principal elected officials of the general purpose governments in the Boston region, and shall endeavor to provide the federal government the views of the, quote, responsible local officials of the region were called for under the federal law with respect to the initiation of certain transportation programs and projects. So the part that was added was referencing transportation planning, program, and policy. And then we have also had some small internal back and forths about the language of the versus a when referencing the forum for decision making. I think our initial thoughts are it's best to remain with the forum for cooperative decision making just when referring to federal regulations, but interested if anyone has any strong opinions here.
Yeah.
Jen, go
Since
ahead.
thank you. Since I brought this comment, I think I totally see where y'all are coming from. I think my comment here is that it isn't clear that and unless I'm not understanding how this is embedded, that like you're talking about the federal process in this overview section. Like so I think there are other cooperative decision-making forums around transportation in the region. So maybe like reordering some of the verbiage here to make sure that like it's clear that it's the federally mandated forum, for example. That I think would make it clear for me.
Derek.
Yeah, I would just second that. And if it helps to use the term, like I think we often refer to it as the 3C process, like
Yep.
and maybe even adding like a footnote or something, right? Like might be useful just to, I think that term means it's, it entails a lot of meaning if you look at the regulations for it. So just a suggestion, but I agree. I think particularly I think planning and programming makes a lot of sense. And then just like when it comes to policy, I think it's good to be careful around that word, especially just to be respectful of like boundaries between what the MPO does versus a policy often could imply legislation. So I just want to make sure when it comes to that, it's very clear what that's referring to. It might be MPO policies around programming of projects, but that's very different from actual legislative action or anything like that. So just wanted to throw that out there too. But I like the addition. I think, as said, it just needs to be framed in the right way. But looks good. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, you know, and having the 3C piece in there, I think makes sense too, because especially when you get into the operation plan, you see 3C over and over again. So it kind of ties the two together so that people don't get confused. So I think these are great points. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm envisioning like in between the word for and cooperative, a quick disclaimer about it being the 3C process. So we will get that edit made after this meeting.
Okay, great.
Before I move on, I just want to give everyone another chance to do input. Fantastic. So then another small change that we're looking at is looking to remove the sort of clause of the MPO striving to eliminate transportation related disparities borne by people in disadvantaged communities versus just generally eliminating the disparities. So again, I just want to pause here and see if we have any strong opinions on this one.
Jen.
Can just say why I suggested this, just that I think there are a lot of disparities that are connected to transportation, but are not like narrowly, transportation disparities. So I think that this kind of allows for that. And I think that, again, like we're not saying we're absolutely going to eliminate all disparities, nor I think would we wish to. We would wish to eliminate all disparities. We don't see that. Maybe I don't have the power to do that. But yeah, that's my suggestion there.
Anyone else on this? Not
So Len,
go ahead.
still having problems getting my hand up. Sorry about that.
Anytime, Len.
Thank you, Tom. So I see what you're getting at, Jen. But I still think we should qualify that. If we're going to say that we're going to be eliminating all disparities, or taking out the transportation related. So we could say that we are striving to be part of the solution. For eliminating all disparities. But to take it, to not qualify it in some way, I think just puts a little bit too much onus on us. I think that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But once again, this is not a hill for me to even scrape my knee on. Thanks.
Anybody else on this one? Oh, Jen in the chat's got maybe the MPO strives to help eliminate disparities.
I think the help helped a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Len, and thank you, Jen.
Perfect. So we will add that help there. And then in that next paragraph, there was a suggestion to remove just the second part of this clause about the geographic distribution of projects. So the initial quote also read that there would be a view towards the geographic balance of projects throughout the region where feasible. This is another one where we've had a bit of back and forth about sort of what the appropriate approach here is. So we are very interested in committee thoughts. Our initial concerns were around the federal regulations that again reference the geographic balance of projects, but there are concerns about what that language means in practice. So I will give up the floor.
Jen.
Thank you. So I think I see that we definitely, the federal requirements require us to consider the geographic distribution of projects. I think the piece that has kind of hung me up, snagged me related to is the geographic balance. Because I think in my mind, when I think of balance, I think of like, there needs to be like a spread of these projects that is like based on like areas and areas having like weight. And I think that divorced from that, the kind of density of people or the different demographics or the needs that are distributed within different geographies. So I think in my mind, I felt like saying that we're considering the geographic distribution of projects in my mind suffices in terms of like hitting the federal requirements there. So that's why I'm proposing removing that clause.
Tegan.
Yeah, I think I can understand why that comment came up. It's interesting because just for perspective, we had been moving away from prior language, which stated something I think closer to geographic equity, which has a whole nother range of challenges around using the phrase and how people perceive the phrase. A lot of people perceive equity as equality. We all know that's not true, but it can create some level of confusion around what it really means to consider geography. I think, and my other colleagues can speak up on this, I think it's important that we acknowledge that there is some federal intent and a consideration this MPO should be making about geography and ensuring that the region as a whole is being considered in some way. And like parts of it are not being forgotten because of not enough capacity, for example, to come to the table and to be able to sort of apply for TIP projects or things like that. So I think it is relevant to include something about that, kind of consideration. And to your point, Jen, I think balance might have been better than where it was, but might still skew in the direction of people feeling like there needs to be some kind of commitment to an equal spread of some kind without consideration of those other factors. And that's not the intent behind the language as we've been revising it. So I just wanted to kind of add that perspective as to why this particular form was in here. And I think it's aligned with what you're saying, Jen, but I think you might need to further tweak the language to get it more into alignment with what you're saying. I'll step back and let others debate it.
Derek.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything Tegan and Jen have said. I just wanted to add in just something for consideration as well, that this seems to be geared very much toward like TIP projects. I think that there's also some analyses that go into like UPWP studies. So looking at, I think there is a look back, I think, of 5 years of communities that have had maybe location specific planning studies. So, even just adding projects and planning studies or, something like that, given that this is a holistic MOU. And then, if there is like a formal process for considering geographic equity, either as part of the TIP scoring criteria or within the UPWP selection criteria for location specific studies or corridor studies or something like that, that could be a source of information to draw on if there's like any interest in making this a little more specific. But again, I think this covers the basic of what it needs to. But just wanted to throw that out there in case that might be something to add. But that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Erin, do you want to come back with some revision there?
Yes, let me put together some proposed language that we can then look at after the operations plan section before we vote, and we can have another discussion on this.
Jen just popped up in the chat, maybe something about with a view to removing barriers to participation in MPO work. Yep, that
is a promising start.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I agree with what Jen said, about the word balance, because it does make it sound like we're trying to be balanced across, the 97 cities and towns. And, we have, obviously the inner core where the larger population is, and, a lot of the transportation issues. So it's figuring out, but I do know we've had many discussions about balance. And I thought what Derek said about including the UPWP studies and things like that, and other things that we do that, does help, balance. It's like we're not ignoring an area or our region. So, so somehow putting a balance in that statement.
We'll see what we can do in the next couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next change is very, very minor, and it's just a verb adaptation from the involvement of members to seeking to involve members of the public. So I'm going to assume that there are no objections there. And then this section within the TIP planning and programming has some similar veins of just updating verb tense, updating the RTA acronym, and then relocating one word just to remove some redundancy of obligated words from the beginning of a sentence to the end of it. So this is all very editorial in nature. And then our next section, section 4A, adds a small revision that the TIP development process shall be cooperative, open, and informed by local, regional, and state input and priorities in a fiscally constrained document. So that changes the wording from being the TIP being a result of the cooperative, open, and informed process, and just some small readability changes. I'll pause here once again.
Anybody on that section there? Oh, seeing none, we can continue, Erin.
Perfect. And I believe this is going to be our final change today, looking at the highway, bridge, and bicycle and pedestrian section. And it just changes the word contain to saying that the TIP shall document the Boston region's portion of all federal and state aid for the TIP. And with that, that is all of the minor changes that have been made since we have last seen this MOU. I wanted to give us an opportunity to think over this again, have some more sort of discussions if we need to, if there are any areas where we should put a bit more effort and revision into, such as that geographic equity section, that would be the appropriate time to raise that.
Sure. First of all, I wanted to thank staff and all the committee members that sent in comments to help improve the document. So thank you very much for all that. Does anyone have anything else that they want to bring up with this at this time? Okay.
Well, this is like finally figuring out the hand raise thing, but man, there are a lot of steps now. Used to be like one click, anyways, so we are going to come back to the geography thing later on in the discussion, right? This is
Yes.
now the last time. Okay, all right.
It will be back in this specific meeting, so it's not going to be in a separate meeting.
Okay, all right. So because I'm thinking through what I've heard so I need to think about it some more. Glad I'll have that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, great. While we're there working on that, what do we have next, David?
Yes. Next, we have the agency coordination description update, progress update. Lauren, if you can bring up that portion, I'll walk us through. We're going to ground this within the operations plan, which this particular work module impacts the most. If we go to the next slide, and then the following one after that. So the way we're going to ground this is talk through who staff have met with, namely MassDOT, MWRTA, CADA, and the MBTA, and just frame it a little bit. And we will also move into the operations plan to give you a bit of a walkthrough. I won't go line by line necessarily, but we've also have it posted, and we'll also allow then an opportunity for committee members to between now and the August meeting to have a look. That will be concurrent with our proposal to bring the MOU, which is the higher level document that actually needs the board approval, on August the 1st. So I'll go through those timelines, but before I pass it on to Ethan, I just wanted to ground the work module that we're about to go through. So with that, Ethan, please take away the MassDOT portion, and Okay, gotcha. Yeah, go ahead, Ethan.
Oh,
Just
okay.
looking at the chats.
Gotcha. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ethan Lapointe. I'm the Transportation Improvement Program Manager. So with regard to process improvements for coordination around information sharing for either MassDOT highway projects or regional target projects funded within the MPO's own investment programs, MPO staff have been working with folks from MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning and have done some preliminary outreach to folks at the Highway Division to discuss a quarterly readiness update for projects at both MPO meetings and or the TIP process engagement and readiness committee meetings. What that means when I say a quarterly readiness meeting, that would functionally be an update that is provided at a much more frequent cadence than the current situation, which is the annual TIP readiness days, which usually takes place in February and very quickly informs scenario planning for TIP development in March. Generally speaking, these quarterly readiness updates would not be a direct emulation or copy of the effort that is taken for TIP readiness days. Rather, this would focus on projects that are either specific regional priorities, be they in the regional target program or the statewide highway programs, and they would generally be identified at members' request. So this may not be a comprehensive review of the readiness status for all projects as the readiness days update is, but rather a focused look at specific projects that members may have either concerns for or may be interested in seeing updates on. As far as establishing a process by which information on this could be gathered or whether or not the cadence of a quarterly meeting is suitable, staff are continuing to talk to the different MassDOT highway districts, which in the Boston region includes districts 3, 4, 5, and 6, but also MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning to figure out a way to get this information in a complete, comprehensive, and timely cadence to enable more informed decision making around TIP development. With that said, this is an ongoing effort because there are some consistent constraints right now. That being that the data that helps to inform the TIP readiness days exercise currently lives in multiple locations, not only accounting for the fact that different proponents and stakeholders, including municipal project proponents, may have different perspectives on readiness updates, but also that MassDOT's own readiness information lives within its systems, and the MPO also maintains information within a separate eSTIP system. Some of this already talks to each other, but there's also an opportunity here, which is critical to the third bullet on screen, in which this process should potentially be automated as much as possible to limit the amount of manual staff effort that needs to be committed. It's important to note that the TIP readiness days exercise is a statewide exercise that again takes place once per year, but is really an all hands on deck measure for all MPOs and all projects, not only in the regional target program, but also statewide highway. While this would be at a smaller scale, finding opportunities to make this a more expedient data call is critical to making sure that this effort can be conducted at a greater cadence. If we can go on to the next slide, this graphic here helps to illustrate this process in more detail should a quarterly readiness cycle be adopted. Generally speaking, through the agenda setting process, MPO staff would work with MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning to identify a date to hold this update, be it at an MPO board meeting and or the TIP process readiness and engagement committee. MPO staff would work with committee or board members to compile a list of projects that members may have concerns around. This would also include coordination with MassDOT Highway, who may have identified any concerns or risk factors of their own on certain programmed projects. MPO staff would then take this list, provide it to MassDOT Highway Division Central Headquarters, and so that it may be disseminated to each of the MassDOT Highway districts. In addition to responding to any of the questions that are presented here, MassDOT Highway may provide additional context or even other projects that it believes should be considered or reported on as deemed necessary. In coordination with MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning staff and the Highway Division, MPO staff may work together to resolve points of either clarification that board members may want to see or any outstanding questions that have not yet been addressed. This would then inform a presentation reporting back to members with regard to specific project updates. Following this presentation, it is then anticipated that additional follow-up questions or the need for ongoing monitoring of certain projects may be requested, such that it would then inform the next quarterly readiness update. I believe that would then take us back to David on the MBTA and RTA slide next.
Yes. Thank you, Ethan. And similarly, similar to coordinating with MassDOT OTP, we've met with a number of stakeholders at the MBTA, as well as our two RTAs, to align on information sharing protocols and workflows that we have then have proposed language in the operations plan around. And those will center on TIP projects coming ahead of scenario planning and having that information shared with the MPO, twice annual project status, as well as the list of obligated projects. And then on to long-range planning, coordinating the long-range plans of the RTAs, which we confirmed that they're required, as well as the PMT and plans like Beyond Mobility, and just keeping tabs and being coordinated on directions between those plans, as well as MBTA and RTA sharing through financial information that would enter into the appendices of the MPO's LRTP. With that, if we go to the next slide, I'll also pause before we enter into the document. The document goes into more detail and spells these out that Ethan and I have outlined. But in general, before we dive in, do you have, I want to see if there's any questions. I'll defer it back to the chair.
Thanks, David. Any questions for either David or Ethan? Derek.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick clarification. So on the note about holding quarterly readiness updates, are those intended to be at MPO meetings or separate meetings from MPO? I believe we had talked about it being part of the MPO meeting, but I just wanted to confirm.
Yes, I'll defer back to Ethan, but I think what I've heard was either the MPO meetings or the TIPper meetings. So leveraging the existing forums that we have. Ethan, if you want to give a head nod, perhaps.
Yeah, I can speak to that in a little bit more. So it's still obviously subject to discussion there, but it would happen either within the existing forums of the MPO board, or if there is limited time available for an MPO board meeting, it would occur at the TIP process readiness and engagement committee meeting, which also lends itself to a more in-depth discussion of projects. They may also be complementary to one another, where an MPO board meeting may summarize, but a detailed description could be provided at the committee meeting.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that was still the case. So sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Anyone else? Jen.
Thank you. I addressed this question to Ethan earlier, but just or pieces of it. So I think I kind of understand, but I just wanted to confirm that, like, it looks like in the document that was posted, these different elements were sort of bulleted out, and the rest of the document is sort of ABCD numbering. And I think that made me a little confused about kind of what was under what, like, existing subheadings. So I just wanted to confirm that, like, there will be a kind of a follow-up to kind of bullet this out to make it clear that, for example, the the information about process for MassDOT and MPO staff does not fall under the like level 4 bullet under 8.2.
Roger. Mr. Chair, if I could address that, staff will go back and sort out the respective leveling of and point well taken. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, can move on to the next item. Dave?
Yes, so related, Lauren, if you wouldn't mind sharing the operations plan redline version, I will walk us through and I will be mindful of time here. So let us scroll down till we hit the first comment on page 4. Page 4 has just date updates since the last iteration, and we will put in the amendment date as well. Let's scroll down farther, please. So we hit page 7. And while it looks as though there are a lot of changes here, what this is it's talking through the composition and the chairship. And that will just be, it was a comment feedback provided by committee members in the past, and it's just rearranging this to further parts of the document. So if we scroll down, it says the MOU establishes the chair, right? Keep going, please. Yeah, so it's nested in as to how the vice chair is elected on a regular basis. And so sorry, if you scroll back up, just so that the committee members can see the initial, it says this, the MOU, just a little bit farther up to section 2, the MOU establishes the secretary of MassDOT or the secretary's designee. And so it doesn't change the content, the spirit of the section. All right, if we can move to, I'm just going to locate it on my own, page 9. Yes, awesome. Similarly, this is just moving it to the prior page, which we saw. Let's go down farther. So page 10. So that is just a date change, and point H, we are adding in the RTAs as reflected and mirrored in the MOU. Let's go down further, please. 2 pages down to page 12. Page 12 then looks at virtual meetings as well as in-person meetings and how frequently these will be held. So making some changes there. Let's go down farther. And as I'm going through, if anyone has comments, please just stop me verbally and we'll pause. And this one is a work module in and of itself that we had, the committee had discussed. I'll read through it. Actually, the staff shall provide board members with opportunities to engage with best practices. Thank you, John. In transportation planning and dialogues with peer agencies and MPOs as funding permits. Such opportunities include, but not limited to, a variety of different formats, right? Including peer exchange conferences where, again, to the spirit and the letter of the previous paragraph, where funding permits, presentations, invitation of experts, and online resources.
Great.
So I'll pause, see if there's any comments, any questions, any additions. Thank you, Lauren, and let's keep going.
Yep.
This one we'll skip through. I think it was just a format or a syntax. Page 18. This one, Stella, are you on call? This relates to the advisory council and just, I think staff made some proposed edits to align with the MOU, Aaron. Sorry, Mr. Chair, if you recognize Aaron.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Erin. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, the changes that were made here are just changing some specificity about the MPO staff's role with the advisory council, just being a bit more specific that the staff administers it instead of supporting it, gives a bit more onus to the advisory council itself. And then just acknowledging the fact that they have a governance document with further bylaws. And I believe there's future work to outline those a bit more further.
Okay.
We'll continue moving through. Aaron, any comments on this one for 6.2?
Just that the overall goal of this is to provide 3 weeks of lead time to MassDOT staff when requesting information being shared. Just establishing what those expectations are explicitly for us.
And then the following comment as well, please. Lauren, it's in the next page.
And then this one referring to unfunded projects is going to need a little bit of workshopping on our end. This is an item that has been relocated from the MOU into the operations plan, as it has a pretty high level of specificity, spelling out just what the unfunded project list is. It doesn't quite fit in this project sharing section, so we're going to have to do a little bit of thinking just where that best fits in this document. So keep an eye out for that in our next conversation.
Okay.
We'll take that away. Lauren, let us scroll down all the way to.
So actually, before you move, sorry. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I appreciate knowing that this needs more work because I was trying to like figure it out too. And I'll mention here, and it's kind of something. I think it's more of a stylistic thing, and I've seen it other places in the document. But when dealing with a list, we often have problems when there's just one item in a list. I always expect like if it's going to be a list, it's going to be more than one. I see that more and more. Like it used to be for me, it's like if there's a one, then there has to be a two. A one never stands by itself. Otherwise, it just becomes part of the description of the item under which it lies. Like just like if there's A, there's going to be a B. And sometimes I see A's hanging by themselves, and I'm always looking for the B, but I think it's a stylistic thing. I think it's something that has changed probably in the last generation or two, but I just mentioned that because I see it here, and I figured if I'm ever going to bring it up, it'll be now, and I will not bring it up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Len.
Found the opportunity. Thank you, Len. Let's go to page 29, which is the substantive part that we had previewed through the slides earlier. So agency information sharing. The first point, as you scroll down a little bit more, has to do with having a lead time before posting. So 48 hours, sorry, if you scroll down just a little bit more, please. Nice. So the 48 hours advanced posting at minimum is there, but additionally putting a role for staff as well to provide notice to request that information, so that when that information is collected, it has sufficient time to for stakeholders to gather that information. If we go down to the next 8.2 and where the edits are made, this is where Jen made a comment around sub-bulleting, and so we'll take that. So this is detailing the process that Ethan had outlined. Each quarter through agenda setting for the MPO, we'll figure out the dates for the quarterly readiness updates. Then staff will compile a list on the basis of questions or concerns raised by board and committee members, and compile that then to communicate that with the highway division, who will then circulate that list with the pertinent districts within the region. The sequence thereafter would be that the districts would either respond or have that information on hand when staff goes to collect that information to bring it back to the board members. I will pause. I saw a hand.
Sorry about that. I was just testing out the option by thing that Jim informed me about. Sorry.
Not a problem at all. MassDOT Highway District staff, the bullet, if we scroll down a little bit more where we see the green text, the data points that the board is interested in, and these would be the triggers, is either addition of a new project, a cost increase beyond the threshold of 10%, cost decrease, shifting of funds, and Ethan, if you want to weigh in here, moving of projects, what is that data element?
Moving a project may refer to either a change in a project's program, in this case referring to either a regional target program or a statewide highway program, so where it is being funded. It's also the phrase we would use if a project is either accelerated or delayed, so its funding year changes. This is the same terminology that we apply on this list to any TIP amendments.
Yep. Roger that. Thank you. And then, or the removal of a project or change of scope. Then we'll work through, staff will work with OTP to verify this information. The following bullet, Highway Division may ask staff to reach out to the proponents to provide a status update. Let's scroll down farther, please. Staff shall then present the annotated project list to the board at the meetings that are scheduled and established during agenda setting. Then the following bullet outlines the responsibilities and the processes for the MBTA, MWRTA, CADA, and staff. The MBTA and RTA shall provide board of TIP projects that are regional and target funded. And then it lists out kind of the data points that are required and the lead time, 4 weeks in advance of scenario planning. It also says other transit projects shall be provided such that they may be incorporated into the draft TIP. That is denoting the non-regional target projects. Ethan, would you like to take Jen's question from the chats?
That is a good question. Shifting funds might also mean that the funding source changes. So Jen's question, just to read it aloud, Jen asked, is there a difference between shifting funds and moving a project that shifting implies only part of the funds in a given fiscal year are moving to another year, whereas moving implies the project in its entirety is moving? So yes, in that case, moving a project would be the entirety of the project. Generally, it's start year, whereas shifting funds might be moving funding between federal fiscal years or changing a funding source or other items of that nature there.
Thank you both. On the second bullet, MBTA and RTA will update the board twice annually, once at readiness and in the fall of projects using regionally prioritized funds. Again, with any risks or cost changes or delays. And then the same entities shall provide staff with a list of obligated projects in December of each year. And these are practices that are being followed at present. And so let's see, the next one at the end of federal fiscal, per the MOU, state agencies shall provide MPO staff with more detailed information around project status. Language. I see. That's coming in. Okay, we'll allocate some time for Aaron's comment that was just shifted in. The next bullet, before the board votes on the new tip, typically in Q2 or early Q3, state agencies shall offer a full summary of how projects fared in the previous fiscal year. This summary shall be shared with MPO staff to be distributed to the MPO board ahead of the board meetings. The summary shall be shared with staff to be, oh, sorry, reading that again. State agencies shall be present to answer any questions. Can we go down a little farther, please? I believe the green text is not net new, but I think there was a change around funding versus aid. So that was the change there. And then on the LRTP, some language was added in just to, this is information that is being collected and has around the appendices as it relates to financial investments and projected financial investments, but just to put that into writing. And then the second, so 832 then relates to coordination with between the long range plans. And to be transparent, that process will take a little bit of initial coordination, and this is being discussed, what was being discussed through kind of our coordination in this work module. So it's very early stages. And then Aaron, I'll pass on the subsequent ones. The changes that are under 8.4, if that's all right.
Yes, so these are changes that have, again, come directly from the MOU, and the text has been very minimally edited, if at all. So we could definitely do another pass here. This is relocating information from the TIP, I believe, federal funding assumptions section that was originally in the MOU. So it just discusses a bit about MassDOT's accelerated bridge program, road and bridge program, and then also some mentions of the MARPA formula, how that was established in 1991, and all of that general information. Again, which has just come verbatim from the MOU.
Thank you. So at this point, I guess two things. As mentioned before, you'll have a chance to comment offline and provide those back. Aaron, if you want to mention perhaps a deadline for the committee. And then the second is if at this point you want us to scroll back to any particular section or have thoughts live, I'll pass it back to the chair.
I get a looks like a question from Len.
Yeah, it's a real question this time. So is now the time to ask for a scroll back, or did you want Aaron to go first?
I was just letting Aaron think about it, and no, go ahead, Tom.
No, whatever way you want to do it.
Yeah, you can definitely scroll back, Len.
Okay, so to page 30, where we talk about MassDOT, Highway Division may ask MPO staff to reach out to a project proponent, provide status updates should they have difficulty finding answer to a question such as why a project design may not be advancing according to schedule. So what would be a scenario, or what do you, I guess you're describing the conditions in which they would ask. I guess I'm trying to understand, why is it that Mass Highway would have to come to us, to ask us to reach out, because I'm trying to determine whether the language should be a little different, maybe stronger in some respects, because I'm thinking about something that happened in the last cycle, and I'm kind of wondering if it applies to that instance.
Ethan?
Yeah, so in this case, it's a may, in the sense that MassDOT's highway division, and their highway districts may not have the staff bandwidth themselves, or
Okay.
may not have a recent contact list. They do their best naturally to maintain an up-to-date list of project proponents and contacts for each project, but they may not necessarily have the staff availability to go out to each municipality and figure out what the reason is for a project's delay, especially if that project is programmed in an out year of the tip, be it 2027 through 29, for example. There may be less activity going on there. Also, many hands can make light work in that regard, and MPO staff are already involved in the project development process in some capacity, so mostly offering
Okay.
support.
Okay, got it. Because because we definitely want to make sure that someone, follows up when we're not getting information, when we're not getting a response. And it does. I think it does matter. And not that you said differently, but in the outer years when we really want to keep things on track. So I was just trying to make sure that didn't imply that we wouldn't follow up if we're not getting, responses from the proponents, because not getting responses is a problem. And so I understand now it's just a matter of who's going to take responsibility, but we're definitely going to make sure, maybe perhaps even in the tipper, that we are getting responses to our questions when we're saying what's up. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Are there any comments and reactions to the document walkthrough at this point? Again, allowing for offline comments as well.
Not seeing any, David, so I'd continue.
Continuing, we want to leave some time for recommendation for a vote, but before we get there, I would like to return back to the MOU document. There were some proposals, Aaron, if you want to go through the options.
Yes, so since we last spoke, I made a couple of modifications and have sent over 2 different options that we can use as a sort of basis for discussion based on what I've heard from you all today. So the first option for revised language keeps the same general format, and it reads, the MPO shall consider the geographic distribution of projects and planning studies when selecting which to fund, with a view to removing barriers to participation in MPO work. And then another alternative to this would be the MPO shall consider the geographic distribution of projects and planning studies when selecting which to fund. The MPO shall make efforts to remove barriers to participate in MPO work throughout the region. So I'm curious if this satisfies concerns, if there's any other modifications that we would want to make, if there's anything that's being left out of this language. So back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments?
Looks good to me. Thank you for
I like
quickly
number,
adjusting it. Yeah.
Len?
Yeah.
I like number 2.
Oh.
I like number 2 better. If I had to pick, I picked number 2.
Right. Me too.
Jen in the chat says either work for her. I just changed participate to participation in number 2.
That is an easy enough change.
And
So we will move forward with the second language.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think I like number 2 better too. So nice work, Aaron. Under pressure, no.
So I think those are the major revisions that we had wanted to address. But again, before we move to a vote, I do want to give committee members a space to raise any last sort of concerns here.
Yep. Any other questions, concerns, edits? Okay, I'm seeing none. Great job. And again, I want to thank everyone, staff and committee members that sent comments in last week and the beginning of this week. All right, I guess so we need to vote on this. It's an action item, right, Dave?
Yes, if we go to the following slide, and thank you, Mr. Chair. To present the recommendation is to present an overview of the MOU work and the progress to the board in one meeting. We believe it's going to be August the 1st, and a subsequent board meeting to recommend a vote to release the updated MOU for public comment. So if we do go with the first, that will be sharing through the, yep, if we stay on the slide, sharing through just context and the work modules, as well as a quick walkthrough through the MOU document itself. And then following up on the 15th with an actual vote request to release for public comment thereafter for 21 days. So would like to recommend this as a vote at this time in the committee.
I would need a motion.
Mike Shannon, so moved.
Thank you, Mike. And Len?
Still slow on that option Y, but I'll second it.
All right. Lauren, can you recall the roll?
Yes. Tom Bent,
Yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Abstain.
Derek Cravat,
Derek Cravat, yes.
John Romano,
John had to leave.
Eric Barassa,
Eric had to leave also.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Mike Sandman.
Mike Shannon, yes.
That motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Now number 8, any member items? Derek.
Yeah, just a question. I just wanted to ask what the deadline would be for comments on the operations plan draft.
Yes, absolutely. That actually takes us, if we do have the slides, if we can go to the work plan, and I'll quickly walk us through, just to give us a preview. Okay, so we're on July the 17th and moving toward the board meetings. If we go to the following slide, we have our next committee meeting on the 7th, I believe, if that's the Wednesday of August. And so we'll want to go before then. And so, Aaron, do you have an estimate for when we want to intake comments on the operations plan by?
Yeah, would Wednesday, the 24th, end of day, be a reasonable deadline for our committee members? That would give us a week to process, get something posted for you guys. We can hopefully have a substantive conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That works for me. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. And then I'll run through this very swiftly as well. In tomorrow's meeting, Tom, the committee chair, will notify the board of what is coming to the board. And then I will update the board with work modules as well as the MOU draft walkthrough on the 1st. And then subsequently on the 15th, we will propose to vote it out. And then the endorsement on that schedule would follow in the week of September 19th of the following month. That is it for the work plan updates. Any questions? That I yield it back to the chair again
Len?
for questions.
So a quick question about the 7th. The meeting at this point would still be at 1 o'clock, pretty much the same time.
I believe
Just
so.
checking. Okay, just checking. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or member items? David, was there something from Erin too? No, okay. If there's no member items, then need first of all, I want to thank everyone. Great job today to get through this. At the like David said at the MPO meeting, we'll be putting out the draft and asking for comments from the board. And then, like we say, we can hope we can keep this thing moving along. And again, I want to, I appreciate everyone's work on this. I know it's been a long haul, and we're almost there. So thank you. And I need a motion to adjourn. Jen.
I'll motion to adjourn and wish everyone a happy ADA day.
Yeah. I need a second. Len. You're muted, I think, Len.
I can't do both at the same time. The option, why and unmuted. It's too much, Tom. It's too much. 10 seconds.
You were quick with the hands up that time, though.
I know, and I'm really tech. I'm pro tech. You know, I'm just like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with Zoom these days. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when they change things on you, you know?
Yeah.
All right. All in favor of adjournment?